we took all that feedback into account and then incorporated it into our development plan, our development schedule. So it's just, yeah, I mean, it's invaluable. It's an amazing tool.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Weekly DLC. I'm one of your hosts, and today we're doing a special interview with one of the creators of the upcoming game, Xenotilt. I'd like to introduce the creator. Ralph, could you please share who you are and what is this pinball masterpiece?
Hi, I'm Ralph Barbagallo, the founder of FLARB and one of the developers behind Xenotilt, the sequel to Demon's Tilt, which you may remember from 2019, sort of a cult hit video pinball game. And Xenotilt is the sequel, which takes everything from Demon's Tilt and like cranks it up to 11. It's pinball that can't possibly exist in real life, with video game elements, bullet hell elements, monsters running around the board, quests, lasers, missiles, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with Demon Tilt as I was with this one. What made you want to come back for seconds in this space, in the pinball space after Demon's Tilt?
Well, a lot of people bought the first one.
Yeah.
So, we liked making it and we really liked the genre, and there was a really good response. It sold well beyond my initial expectation.
Nice.
And
that's
so
great.
We kind of immediately just decided, let's make another one. And, there was a whole worldwide pandemic and there was nothing else to do but make a sequel.
And for those unfamiliar with Demon's Tilt, were there things that you're doing in this one that weren't in the first one? Like I was playing through the demo at the prior, on our first time we met and everything, and doing the demo now, there was a lot of different elements, but I don't have that prior knowledge. I'm just curious, like, what did you guys like develop upon or build on from what was there with Demon's Tilt?
Yeah, well, the first game had, it was similar, but this game has just aesthetically has a lot more going on. So we have a lot more VFX, we have lighting, there's all kinds of new types of, visual elements that we didn't have in the first game. But then there's also new mechanics. So we have a perk system where when you lock balls in this multi-ball matrix on the right, there's like a 9-ball matrix that you can lock balls in. That will unlock what we call perks, which are different abilities you get in the game that change the gameplay a bit. There's also a sort of like a codex of achievements that when you unlock achievements, you can actually earn prizes in the game that include, like screen filters and new music and stuff like that. So there's a lot of progression mechanics. And then we're releasing an early access on August 18th. The early access mode has 2 of the 4 game modes.
Okay.
So the first game had 3 game modes. This one has an extra one.
Nice.
So the other 2, there's a survival mode we're working on, which is like a time attack mode kind of sort of, where you have to get more time on the clock and survive as long as you can. And then we're bringing back the EX mode from the first game, which has the bosses, the sub tables and stuff. But the EX mode this time has a new survivor mechanic where you can rescue survivors on the playfield, which you could then hire on your subsequent runs that give you different abilities and buffs and things like that.
Nice. So one of the things you touched on I liked a lot, and I was noticing a little bit of it and a taste of it, and I was like, okay, I definitely latched onto this and resonated with it, was what you said about the progression system, like having things that just carry over. Do they carry over from game to game, or is there like how does that, can you go into that at all?
Yeah, so the codex system carries over to game. The codex is like aesthetic changes, you can get like new tilt bob icons and things like that. And then the survivor system in EX mode also carries over game to game. So you'll have sort of this array of survivors that you've rescued and you add to it every time you rescue one. And so when you start EX mode, you can pick from that survivor list. You can create your own little team, which will give you some new abilities when you start the game.
As you continue.
Persists.
Okay. Yeah, I love that because it makes me feel like it's not just I can enjoy in a specific instance of this. I can just pick this up and play around, and also know that progress is going to carry over into my next time I want to pick it up and play a few more rounds or something. One thing can I talk to you a little bit about the development process of this?
Sure.
What were there lessons you guys learned from Demon's Tilt, or was it largely new challenges this time around? You mentioned a little bit of you guys were working during COVID. I'm sure that presented its own challenges, possibly. Could you talk anything about any of those?
Yeah, well, we're mostly a remote team. I'm in Los Angeles, and Adam Ferrando, the creator of the game, he's in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And although I go back there every once in a while, we work mostly worked remote throughout the whole first game, so it didn't really change our workflow that much.
Okay.
Other than there was nothing else to do at all,
Yeah.
for a couple of years. So we just poured a lot more into this game over that time period. So development style, not a whole lot changed, but we did learn a lot in the first game that we applied to this game. And then interestingly, we learned a lot in this game that we went back and sort of patched the first game because we found a lot of stuff that we could do better.
Oh, nice.
And so it we still support the original game. There's still, we actually still have some more plans for it. So yeah, they kind of feed into each other. So yeah, I mean, honestly, when we started the sequel, we just kind of copied the project and then just started pulling out stuff we didn't need and replacing things. And now it's a, almost entirely new code base. But we built upon the original game and then added more to it. And a lot of the things we learned were a lot of things, we just had to learn the ins and outs of the physics system. And, we learned a lot from the first game that we then were able to apply to this and start off with those assumptions already proven.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a little bit less experimentation with some of the technical aspects because we kind of knew how they work. Because the thing is, pinball is kind of like the pathological use case for any engine's physics system. So we kind of had to learn the ins and outs of Unity's 2D physics to prevent the ball from flying out of the board and all that stuff. And so we learned a lot that we then applied to this game.
Okay. Or decide when you do want the ball to fly out of here. The game's very bombastic, so I could totally believe that would be a mechanic you guys have at some point.
Sometimes we hide it. Sometimes we make it look like it's intentional because we do have a thing where it captures the ball if it accidentally. This is in the first game too. If the ball accidentally flies through something, sometimes we just can't control it. It'll fly through accidentally a collider of some kind.
Okay.
And we return the ball to the trough, and it just looks like it's part of the game, but it's actually sort of like a catch-all. It's a fail-safe, basically.
Nice. One thing I want to touch on outside of the gameplay is the music. The music was one of the biggest highlights for me. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, that's Charlie. He's our composer. He's incredible. He uses this. I think he elaborated on it a little bit this time, but in the first game he used only Sega Genesis and Mega Drive patches, like instruments.
Yeah.
So you could actually theoretically, at least with the first game, you could actually, if you wanted to, we could make that run on a Genesis. Like, you could probably run the soundtrack off a cartridge somehow. And in the sequel, he went crazy on the sequel, and there's a lot more music, similar style, and the music's incredible. Adam and Charlie, the composer, they work a lot on the music, and they've really put a lot into the soundtrack. It's I think quite a big, larger soundtrack than the first game had. And the first game had an amazing soundtrack too. So they're kind of like good companion pieces for each other.
So are you familiar with, for that development process between the levels that were designed and the tracks created, was it like the level was designed first, then the track was built around it, or were the tracks just made to fit in this ambiance of this game?
No, Adam and Charlie work hand in hand on the soundtrack. It's like, in fact, I think, if I look back on, the sort of the accounting for this game, I think one of the first invoices I wrote to an external contractor in 2019 was to Charlie for the music. So we've been working on the music since day one. So the music and the game and the aesthetic and the levels have been all built at the same time, hand in hand. And Adam and Charlie are constantly iterating on the sound and the music to make it match what's going on in the game. So it was definitely not an afterthought. It's an integral part of this process.
Well, yeah, it just in a little bit I tasted in the demo, I was like, I wanted to not just experience this on like my computer speakers. I was like, I need to get some good quality headphones on, immerse myself in the music as like the game was going on. Like, not only the visual side of it was hitting me, as you were saying, but like, yeah, it complemented it very well. Props to Charlie.
Yeah.
So when we first met, I want to bring this up, is when we first met, it was in Level Up Expo in Vegas. I demoed it there with a controller. And then before this interview, I was doing the demo. I was using my Steam Deck largely, and it was an absolute joy. I wonder, is this? I know it's on. It's been being promoted on Steam. Is there any plans for console launches or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, what we do with the early access process is once we once early access is done and the game is 1.0, that's usually when the console versions start to come out.
Okay.
So yeah, we kind of plan to have the first console version done when the game exits early access, and we're trying to exit early access. Like, I don't think it's gonna be that long, like by the end of the year or something.
Okay.
So we'll see when the first console version comes out, probably, maybe Q4, Q1, something like that of next year. So it'll, they'll follow fast. That's what we did with the first game. The first game was, after early access, that's when the console versions came out.
Okay.
And so we plan the same thing for this game.
Yeah, I mean, a computer's, super versatile. You can use any kind of input. I just felt like the way you guys built it for the controller inputs was smooth, and I was like, that, like, playing it handheld and with my Steam Deck was great. And then I could just swap and go into a console and load it up on my like nice TV, have the visuals like blasting with my speakers and everything. I was like, this is a treat. I'm wondering if that's what your intentions were. So cool.
Oh yeah, and we spent a lot of time optimizing it for Steam Deck already. So we're gonna try to get verified, like, I did as soon as possible, because like, I think Demon Still was one of the earliest. I think we got that game verified pretty early. It might have been one of the first rounds of verified Steam Deck games. So we're spending a lot of time optimizing it for Steam Deck, and it pretty much runs pretty smoothly. There's a couple hitches we've seen, but we're ironing them out, and it runs great on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I had no hiccups or anything in that little test I had. I was also curious. So it's gonna. You said it's gonna launch soon.
Yeah, August 18th. That's
August
early
18th.
access.
What's next for you guys?
I don't know. We spent so much time on this game. We're just gonna basically, what's next is getting this game to 1.0 and then getting all the console versions finished.
Okay.
Some consoles are more of a challenge than others, and we'll see. I mean, Adam's been making pinball games now the first game he started making it in like 2016, 2015. So he's approaching almost 10 years of making a pinball game. So
Pinball Pro.
We'll see what he wants to do next. I don't know if he has pinball burnout or what, but we'll see what he wants to do next.
I mean, the Tilt, this is almost like a universe you guys have built around it, like the Demon's Tilt, the Xenotilt. I could, in my head, I could see maybe either in more pinball space or just in this universe. If you guys decide to do anything else with it, I could see that expanding out and being a whole thing for you guys.
I agree.
It feels
has a lot of flexibility.
It feels fleshed out. It feels like it has its style. It has an identity, which I love. Like that gives me confidence. It's like it's got mileage on it that you could run with in any direction. So props to you guys for that. I want to give.
We could see it kind of growing too, because the wish list activity and the metrics for the sequel are a lot bigger than the first game. So we've definitely built sort of like a cult following for this brand, you could say, or this aesthetic, or this series of games. So yeah, I think there's definitely places we can go with this this IP or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. And so this is also, you're saying it's going to be coming to early access and you're trying to get to the 1.0. Did you guys do early access for Demon's Tilt?
Yeah, Demon's Tilt was in early access for about a year. I think it went into early access in January 2019 and then left early access in December of 2019. But this game is a lot further along than the first game was in early access. So I think, we're trying to get it out of early access by the end of the year. So maybe a 3-month early access period or something. I can't promise anything, but it's pretty far along. We'll see how the reaction is when we release it, but it's way more polished and way more feature filled than the first game was when we went into early access back then.
Okay, that makes sense. And to that point, I wanted to talk about the early access bit in the development process. It's like, I see games like yours. I remember Hades had a similar thing where they went to early access, fine-tuned things before they had their launch, and Baldur's Gate 3 just came out and they went through a lengthy early access period. How do games as great as yours and these others, like you're in these spaces, like is the early access model what helps, a big aspect of what helps drive towards that like final polished product? Or
yeah, we couldn't have done the first game without early access. It was invaluable. I mean, when we put it out, it was just a 2-person development team. So we needed other people to play the game and see the game and give us feedback. You didn't want to develop it in a vacuum. So that helped a lot. Also, in the PC in particular, you need to accommodate all different kinds of hardware configurations. So when we released it into early access, a lot of people, gave us bug reports or feedback based on their configurations that we never considered, because, there's just so many different ways to set up a PC. So it's invaluable. And then, we got a lot of balance notes and things like that, in addition to bug reports from the community. And, we already had a plan to finish the game. Like, this is the thing, like, sometimes early access gets a bad name, although I think that's kind of changing.
Yeah.
Because there's so many successful early access projects now, because it's now just like a fundamental part of a lot of successful games development. Where basically, we put it out, but we already had a plan to finish the game when we put it in early access. We just integrated early access into our existing process to finish the game. It wasn't that we were just kind of like looking for early access for the answers somehow. Like we already had a roadmap and a plan.
Right.
And then, Steam in particular is just a platform that allows for this process to work so well. I mean, it's just, we wouldn't have been able to release the game without it. It's a definitely integral part of everything we do.
And one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like some of the things these days is the fact that games, that there's so many curations for like, oh, I'm searching for games, and marketing is a challenge with so many games being developed nowadays. That early access kind of helps you be like, okay, this builds word of mouth. I think in the past it's always been like, okay, oh, there's talk of this game, and then it releases, and then it's out there. The early access, in my eyes, is like, oh, I got a chance to try this. This looks good. I'm gonna wait till the release, or I want to keep playing around with it, see what it's like in the journey on the way. Do you see that, or do you see it in a different way, or what's your thoughts on how a game builds its like following or marketing through early access in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, we built a lot of marketing and a lot of goodwill through early access. It's kind of funny. I think when we started with the first game in 2019 with early access, it's kind of like there was a lot of conventional wisdom that somehow early access was bad or it would hurt your brand because you would get a lot of negative reviews and stuff. But we didn't encounter that. What we got is people who were really invested in the game and wanted it to succeed because they got in early and they felt maybe a little, I don't want to say ownership, but they felt involved and they felt that
part of it.
Yeah, so it's like they were more invested in it and they wanted it to succeed. So we got really great support and really great, and then that built a really a big cult following. That also they do appreciate the fact that we do still update the game. We're not updating it as much as we did during early access, but I think we put out at least 2 patches to Demon's Tilt in the past year or maybe less. So yeah, they appreciate the support and it builds a nice, passionate following. And now I've noticed the conventional wisdom has changed. Some of the gurus in the Steam marketing space now are now advocating early access because you almost kind of get 2 launches. You get your early access launch and then you get your launch, and you get 2 events to sort of base publicity around. And especially if you've built a lot of goodwill through early access, it can't hurt. I never had that experience of having, people mad because you're in early access. As long as the release is good and you take everybody's feedback into account that's realistic and incorporates it, and you incorporate it into the game, and your messaging is good, it works.
Yeah, I think you guys have a great formula for success. It's great to hear. I wanted to ask, I hope you guys also have some time to relax a bit, play some games of your own. Are you guys playing anything right now?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always playing stuff.
What's on the docket?
Well, I mean, I already pre-ordered Armored Core 6.
Oh, nice.
I loved Armored Core back in the day. I didn't like, it's been so long now, but the last 2, I remember just not liking them as much as the old ones, but I'm excited about this one.
Okay.
Because it looks like it's a new kind of take on Armored Core, since now they're all, demon sold out. And I just finally finished. I had to clear Tears of the Kingdom off my schedule. It took me like 190 hours to beat that game, which I can't believe. But
wow, that's impressive. Yeah,
I wasn't even trying to do it. I just like, it was just took forever to beat it. It was good though. It was very good.
Yeah, I mean, 190 hours. That's a statement.
I think I only spent 120 hours in Elden Ring. I don't know how I spent 190 hours in Tears of the Kingdom.
Just those Koroks, man. They get to you.
I know. Yeah.
And I'd be remiss. One of my fellow podcasters, Jang, had a requested question I asked, and I'm positive others are wondering the same thing or have asked the same thing of you guys. Do you have a favorite pinball machine?
Well, I like, for the new, let's call it new, less than 10 years old.
Okay.
Now maybe this is new. I like Total Nuclear Annihilation. That's my favorite new pinball machine. I think that came out like 5 years ago. It's sort of smaller. You could probably fit it in your house. And it would spit out like this gold coin, I remember. And you could and if you use that, it was not gold, but like a fake gold coin, certain events, it would actually generate this like weird token. It would spit out a physical token.
Oh.
And you could feed it back into the machine to get like a special game mode. I'm sure I've seen those machines since. And of course, they don't make those tokens anymore, so I don't even know how that works now if you go to like a barcade. But I used to like that game Safecracker a lot too.
Safecracker. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Ralph, for your time. I must confess, I did not play Demon's Tilt, but I have never been this excited for a pinball game since the Microsoft pinball game had come out in 1998.
Excellent.
I want to say when and where can pinball fanatics and all gamers of all kinds get their hands on Xenotilt? Could you remind them?
August 18th, Steam. You can wish list it right now, but August 18th, it comes out on early access. Grab it. And if you can't wait, you can just buy Demon's Tilt right now. It's out on everything: Xbox, PlayStation, Switch.
And still supported, everywhere. As you said.
It's still supported, yeah. So, yeah, you can practice. You can train up on Demon's Tilt, but Xenotilt comes out August 18th on Steam.
Great. And any socials you want to plug?
Oh, yeah, there's Xenotilt on, I guess it's called X now. So if you go on X, there's Xenotilt. On Instagram, it's Xeno.tilt because I couldn't get Xenotilt. There's also Xenotilt.com. And then you could just, I'm on X as well as FLARB at FLARB. And then Adam, the creator of the game, he's on WIZNWAR, WIZNWAR, WIZNWAR on every platform. So yeah, but if Xenotilt.com has the links to everything if people need information.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for having this interview with me. And be sure to check out Xenotilt August 18th.